everyone. I'm going to share my screen now. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Cool. So I'm going to talk about Grafana 7 and what has bring into this game of observability. I've been using Grafana for a long time, almost since I started using Kubernetes, Prometheus, and all this ecosystem of metrics and containers and schedulers. Everything is ephemeral. So on this release has brought some very, very interesting features. So first of all, let's talk about the observability pillars. I guess everybody is roughly already familiar with this Martin Fowler's definition of these pillars. Metrics, tracing, and logging, they all have something in common, a little bit of overlap between them, but they have a different scope, a different context to gather information about the systems, your applications, what's going on over there. So if we go into metrics, and this is only from my experience and the tools I use, I don't advocate for any particular implementation. This can be translated to anything else. So this is, for example, a dashboard from Grafana, and this is how I visualize metrics and how I see things. All this comes from Prometheus. This is how we gather metrics, we collect them, and this is just a measurement of the state of the systems or your applications. Doesn't give you very, very detailed information about things. It's just a way to flag that there is something going on, good or bad, or just to measure the performance of your systems. And then we have logs, which will be the oldest of all the pillars that we know already. I have gone through many of them. These are different stacks to collect and visualize logs. Everyone collects the logs and centralize them. It's the easier way to know where things or what things are happening. And you don't want to run through all different systems, different ways of accessing your logs and having to remember all the different ways of doing it. You centralize them, you visualize them, and you have only one way of getting them and querying them. This is just, again, an example. This is Grafana. You collect them, you have an index, you can filter them by fields, just way of doing things. So again, this is just another way. This gives you a little bit more context. You can see previous steps, next steps after the error, if you're looking for errors. But again, it doesn't allow you to do these mathematical operations that, for example, metrics will be able to do. And then we have traces, maybe the most unknown of the three pillars. So basically, traces give you a little bit of context on what a request is doing through the whole system. And this obviously comes with a little bit of, you have to pay the price of instrumenting your tools or adding some interceptors or other toolings. On my experience, I have been using Open Tracing for a long time, particularly Zipkin. Another tool that has implemented Open Tracing is Jaeger. This is from Uber. But then Open Tracing has joined to Open Census, which is an implementation from Google, and they have become Open Telemetry. They deliver some instrumentation middleware, so you have metrics and traces out of the box without having to do anything into your source code, theoretically. At the end of the day, you have to do some bits and bobs. So this is how traces look like. So you have different components. You can identify them by colors on the Jaeger UI. Then you can see a request, which things are doing. You can see parallel requests, serial requests, and if, well, depending how you annotate them, you will be able to see, for example, here there are some errors. But this, again, comes with the price that you have to instrument your systems. And then, obviously, this becomes the most useful thing when there's a problem. So normally, what I have been doing on the past years is I have an alerting system that comes with Prometheus. This alerting normally posts into a messaging tool, Mattermost or Slack or any other TeamCity, whatever you want to use for direct messaging. And that triggers some actions. That triggers an investigation. So what's happening? First step, I normally go into the dashboards, see what's happening with my app. If I don't have any dashboards, I might go directly into running some queries into my Prometheus servers and see what is roughly happening, has been happening for a long time, has been just a spike. And then I go into the metrics and see, oh, what actually happened on this particular problem on these metrics. And if you're lucky enough and you have traces, you could see, oh, this happened when the requests go through this path, and then you eventually can implement a fix and run through all the process of the incident's response. And then roughly a couple of months ago, during the GrafanaCon, I started listening or hearing about what the Grafana 7 can do now. And it has been really, really interesting, and really, I'm really happy to see those features implemented because there was a need of that. So now Grafana 7, this is not implemented yet. So it allows you to go from metrics to traces. So you go into your Grafana dashboard and you can click somewhere, and then you will see the traces. And then you click somewhere else and you will see the logs. And this is very powerful because I don't have to go through 3 different UIs and trying to correlate timestamps, IDs, and other bits. Normally metrics and logs don't come at the same time. So they're collected differently. They have well, different nature. And again, traces could be more trustful, but again, depending on your login systems and how you configure them. So this is where the demo starts. First time I'm doing a demo, so wish me luck. I'm going to talk a little bit about what tools I have been using for the demo. You can see something, well, basically this is Kubernetes based. First of all, I have been using Kind, which is Kubernetes in Docker implementation, Minikube, which is a virtual machine with Docker, Bash, Helm, Grafana Loki, Grafana server to visualize them. And for this purpose, Jaeger, because it consumes much little memory and is running on my laptop. Zipkin is Java, but I have the most experience with Zipkin. And I will share this later, but there is a URL that you will be able to get all this from the repository. I'm still working on this, so don't look at it now. Let's go to the demo. Cool. So you can see I have Grafana deployment. I have all this is running on my local laptop. And I have 3 little dashboards over here. This is actually, this looks like this. I'm using just how Jaeger recommends to deploy things. This is all running into my little script. using Helm to install Prometheus with some custom properties, Loki, Promptail, which is one of the tools to forward logs into Loki, and then a little app that I have built to instrument and see how things go into Grafana. This translates roughly into this. And this is a very, very simple dashboard I have implemented for the app I'm developing. Over here, there's a heat map with the distribution of requests that has been successful, and the latency. So the app I have implemented has a random timeout or random delay on the requests, and randomly will also reply with a 500 error. It also do recursive calls to itself, depending, again, randomly tries to call itself and randomly replies with one call or another. Over here, you can see the distribution of the number of errors that have been recorded on the logs. This is coming from Loki, which is a logging system, aggregation list system, very powerful. I really like it. I discovered it only a couple of months ago. And it's just basically like grep, and it's great. It's much, much easier and lightweight than other tools I have been using. And it also allows you to do aggregations like this, which is great because you can even set alarms on Grafana for these kind of things. So going back, this is the distribution for my 500s that you will be able to see here and over here. Then we have some Grafana metrics with some errors over here, 502s, because I have deployed a broken Prometheus data source. Everything is broken, some logs are generated, and some metrics are pushed as well. Not a big deal. So all this is just metrics, which again is one of the ways of visualizing one of the 3 pillars, but it's as easy as doing this for me to add a new panel with logs. Here we go. And now I can see the logs from my Grafana deployment. And I can see, well, because this is Promptail knows about the logs formats, and it can recognize that this is an error. It will highlight that this is an error. And it's awesome to be able to see that I have not there. Not there. Yes, here. This is great to be able to see that I have 500 errors over here, and I have a correlation with those errors over there. And when I filter my metrics. All these logs are filtered at the same time, so I don't have to spend time correlating what that spike on my metrics means on my logs. It's all done for you. One of the other features that Grafana has is the Explore tab, which is over here, but you can navigate from the dashboard into there, and you will be able to see this fantastic distribution with the colors, seeing errors and successful entries on the logs. And you can see signatures if there's any repetition of the logs. There you go. There's some duplicated entries. And also something that is very, very useful, not on that one, and this one, no. Okay, there is no a correlation on these ones with the traces, which is unfortunate. So Grafana needs a little bit more instrumentation on the logs to be able to do that. But luckily, we have the app that have quickly developed to see this. So let's explore all these errors and see what happens. This is a little problem when you navigate from a metrics dashboard into the Explore tab. It doesn't recognize that you just want the logs. But sometimes it does a very good job filtering and creating the query directly for you. There you go. All of them are reds because they are all errors. Well, basically everything's broken because I'm filtering by that field over there. Also, something awesome on these logs is when you are filtering them, you can see the context of that error entry above and below the entry. So these are errors, but these are also info entries, and you can see them and you can expand them. You can load more if you want. You want to see more forward or backwards on that entry. But what I want to see, what I want to show you is this little bit. So I have identified a field, well, I know they are the traces, and I'm parsing that, and I'm creating a new field. So that field is this one, but I have extracted it and make a link to Jaeger. And that just opens a tab on the side, and it pings me directly into that dashboard, into that trace, which is great. This is a little bit of a bug on Jaeger UI at the moment, which keeps growing. And you can see, this is my ping pong app that's very annoying. My ping pong app that randomly returns 500s and keeps doing internal calls, recursive calls, until all of a sudden just crashes and goes back. So if we close this one, you can see it a little bit better, the trace. But it's great. It's great just the fact that I can go from logs or from metrics into logs into traces with a single UI, and everything is condensed in here. So this is basically the same UI as you will be able to see on, oh, I cannot hit that. Oh, oof. There we go. That's Jaeger UI. So you will be able to do the same if you go over there. Okay, it's not working now. Yay, it's a demo. Shouldn't be, should fail from now and then. But yeah, this is basically what you can do. You can create graphs with logs. You can have the logs alongside with your apps, metrics. You can visualize them. You can go directly into the Explore tab, which is fantastic. You can create splits and have more metrics over there. You can just swap into Loki. Yeah, show me the logs directly over there. All these times frames are locked, so you can actually filter here and will automatically filter the logs over there. It makes the developers' lives so much easier thanks to all this tooling. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to share with you. So thank you, and we'll take a look to the Q&A. Let's see if I Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carlos. So the one question has come through, and that is, once upgrading to Grafana 7, is it possible to have mixed content on a dashboard in terms of some charts being connected to a tracing/logging module and other graphs being independent?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will have to see the example you're mentioning, but you can connect, I mean, you can have any kind of combinations. You don't have to filter, well, so if you want to, if I understand this correctly, you can have a dashboard with tracing, logging, and well, metrics. As far as I have seen, investigated, you cannot visualize traces on normal dashboards. You can only see them through the Explore tab or the Explore feature. But I guess that's something that will be coming pretty soon, hopefully.
Great, thank you very much. So that's all the questions for now. As with most talks with live demos, the questions normally come flooding in afterwards. So if you do have a question, do feel free to write it on the Q&A section, and Carlos will be happy to answer that.